fellow Singaporeans, friends of Singapore. We're delighted to gather here this morning at the Eurasian House to celebrate Singapore's 44th birthday. Over these 2 weeks, all over Singapore, different groups come together to observe our National Day. Over these 2 weeks, all over Singapore, Singaporeans of different ethnic groups and religions from different walks of life come together to observe National Day. They meet in schools, in community halls, at the power stations on Jurong Island, in shipyards, very often joined by non-Singaporean friends and colleagues and relatives. And we're delighted this morning to welcome all Singaporeans to this Eurasian House for our celebration. Our multi-ethnicity is something very unusual. Most countries, almost all countries, have now, with globalization, become multi-ethnic and multi-religious. In many countries, it has become a source of problems. And we need only to read the newspapers every day of unhappy conflicts in different parts of the world arising out of this diversity. In Singapore, our diversity is in our very essence. No one can imagine a Singapore which is not multi-ethnic or multi-religious. In fact, diversity is an idea which defines Singapore not only to ourselves, but to the world. And we're able to manage this diversity only because we have national policies which are overall fair, which treats everyone equally, which allows talent to rise, which when the outcomes appear too uneven because of competition, we try to make accommodations in order that no one is left behind, or no ethnic group or no religious group somehow becomes trapped in underdevelopment. But it is not just policies and government. It is also what we are as individual Singaporeans, what we as parents teach our children, how teachers teach students in schools, how employers treat their workers. Above all, it is what we ourselves are in our hearts. If we are close-minded, if we are insecure, it will show eventually in how we treat one another. And distrust builds upon distrust, suspicion upon suspicion, and very quickly, it is not at all difficult to find ourselves in a situation not too different from that we find in other countries. So on the one hand, policies, on the other hand, a common instinct that this diversity is part of us can be problematic, but also can be beautiful. And it is this same spirit which opens our hearts to people from other countries as well, welcoming them here as colleagues, as tourists, as students, sometimes, and increasingly so, as in-laws, as relatives. We in the Eurasian Association feel particularly honored that this observance ceremony should be held here in the Eurasian House. The Eurasian community is by far the smallest community in Singapore, or at least the definable one out of the four. There was a time when it just got lost in the decimal points, and it was considered others, CIMO, Chinese, Indian, Malay, and others. I must say that created a certain resentment among Eurasians in Singapore that they were not treated in a sufficiently respectful way. And there was indeed a time when the community was demoralized, when many of its members emigrated in the 70s and 80s. But we have rounded the corner. Over the last 20 years, the morale has gone up, the community has grown, new members have been inducted, there is a new Eurasian spirit. The rules are being relaxed now to enable parents in mixed marriages to decide that their children should be called Eurasian when they enter primary school. And in some ways, this community has made great contributions to the overall well-being of Singaporeans. A few weeks ago, we had a wonderful musical called Eurasian. President Nathan was a patron. And the hall was packed over the two performances. And after that, many Eurasians remarked to themselves, wow, I didn't know there's so much talent in the community. But they were reminded, as all Singaporeans were reminded, that over the years, Eurasians have made indispensable contributions to Singapore's history, Singapore's development, to Singapore's past, to Singapore's present, and will continue to make such contributions to Singapore's future. In a way, the morale of the Eurasian community is a measure of the morale of Singapore as a whole. A measure of our health as a multi-ethnic society. All of us know how to treat the rich and the powerful around us. But just as a society is not to be judged by how it treats its rich and its powerful, so we as individuals are not to be judged by how we treat the rich and the powerful. We are to be judged by how we relate to the poor and the weak among us. And it's for this reason that we have self-help groups in Singapore, to make sure that we don't only do what we naturally do, but we also do what is morally and socially right to do. And in some ways, the fact that the 4 self-help groups, which are observing nationally together for the first time, should choose as their first venue the Eurasian Association, that itself says a lot about what we are as Singaporeans, about a diversity which we have learned to treasure and which we celebrate today. Happy National Day.